to say this, because it's very important that as we're talking about patriarchy, I'm talking about patriarchy in the world, not necessarily just from the perspective of the Muslim community. For example, I just spent some time in West Africa, Senegal, and one of the, most empowering things in the time that I was there is that, I mean, there are so many, but just one specific one that stood out in my mind. So we're sitting in the car, and you know how there are people who come up to you and they're selling things. And so this one particular young man, he's got all these medallions around his neck. And so as he's got these medallions around his neck, what I find is I'm looking at the medallions, and some of them are men who are scholars, and some of them are just kind of like religious relics. And then he's got these women, right? These pictures of these women. And I'm like, who's that? Right? And she's not a Beyonce at all. She's actually a female scholar, right? That he's got around his neck, and he's selling these, and people are buying it because the level of reverence of women, particularly, I would say, in the religious sphere, in the social sphere, in the political realm, in places of Africa, for example, there are tons of women who've been president, prime minister, held positions of power, are in parliament, in Muslim countries in Africa, and specifically in West Africa. So I cannot say that image of Islamic, of patriarchy, claiming to be, Muslims practicing patriarchy, is something that is consistent all over the world. Even in the case when we look at, Pakistan, for example, right? Southeast Asia, you have women, we've had women who were presidents. We haven't even had a woman president in America. So for us to, put this like, we're so great in America as creating this balance, right? And other Muslim countries are so backward. I say, wait a minute, let's reevaluate that. Even in the case, for example, I lived for a period of time in Saudi Arabia. I lived for a period of time in Yemen, where people are looking from one end of the lens and saying, wow, in Yemen, these women were all black, and, they cover their faces, and they're so oppressed. I never saw more intelligent women probably in my entire life. Right? Highly educated, would put professors in universities here to shame. Young, 20, some 21, will put them to shame. And they have their own universities. We find in Turkey, we find in Malaysia, we find, women have their own mosques, right? Women have their own in Morocco. You have entire cities established by women. Timbuktu is actually a city established by a woman. So I can't say that that's necessarily a tradition that then I'm going to go educate you and say empower your women. Actually, me, the American, needs to work on our empowerment of women and the patriarchy that we adopted, right? And how we sold out to that. So, switching over. I served as a principal of a vice principal of a high school, of a Muslim high school, for a number of years. And you have this, balance, where you find parents who seemingly don't necessarily, wish their daughters to be as vocal or outward in certain ways. Right? But their daughters they're training their daughters to be lawyers, doctors, engineers, dominate their fields of industry in a very empowering way. So I just can't claim that. I can't, so I can't say it. I can't find that to be true across the board.
And it's one of the things that I started off with saying about, when I work in the war zones, like I have yet to find a woman who has the luxury of victimhood. I really haven't. I mean, it's amazing. And if I were to even claim, like when I arrive, we if you want to do your job well, you follow them. Because people know their own solutions to their problems. Oftentimes they're cut off from funding and they're cut off from technical assistance. That's the only missing gap, that they know it, they know exactly, even illiterate women, doesn't even have to be educated women. I mean, the political analysis that comes from illiterate women in refugee camps continues to blow me away, because it's not something they're studying, it is their reality. But I think for those that you're talking about where they are limiting, when you are constantly attacked and you're operating under the lie of scarcity, under a place of fear, under a place of defense, remember what I said, you cover your faith, and more frighteningly, you cover your heart. And you can't evolve and you can't, expand when you're in that position. So I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges is how do we step out from a defensive posture? And then, I mean, people want, I truly believe it's what unites us as humanity is parents want their children to have a better life than they did. And one of the most devastating things to see in war is when you see grandparents, and Iraq is a great example, where you see grandparents who have phenomenal opportunities and then watch their children barely make it through college and then watch their grandchildren barely have a high school education. So we're seeing things roll back from country to country in a lot of Muslim majority parts, and particularly part of the Middle East. I mean, again, I come at it from economics, I don't come at it from identity. And in economics, there is something called a resource curse. And when you have oil, and you have the gold, and you have the natural resources across Africa, Nigeria, there's no excuse for any type of poverty to exist in Nigeria when you have the wealth that it has. Same thing for Iraq, but from the resource course perspective, it invites the world, particularly a part of the world that feels entitled and has a whole way of feeling that the world is for them to actually move the resources. Then you invite new forms of conflict and you're in that defensive posture. So for me, it's not religion, it's nothing, it really is about economics, and it is about an entitlement to what resources are created, which are meant to be equally distributed. They're not meant to be hoarded the way that they are in this day and age.
There's something that I wanted to call us to think about. Many times, images that are shown to us, images are shown to us and someone else gives it a caption, right? And so then that becomes our perception of a matter. So we look at Saudi Arabia, we look at Yemen, we look at Afghanistan, and we say if women's space, like if they're entirely covered, right? That means she is absent from society. That means this is like, whoa, they're covering her up in a way that says to keep her out, right? However, and then we give it a stamp of approval by saying women in Saudi Arabia can't drive. That's our biggest thing. They can't drive. But they have entire women universities by the multitudes. They're active in the public sphere by the multitudes. They own businesses and real estate by the multitudes. And are very wealthy. And as a woman, having lived in the Middle East and lived in America, you can take away my right to drive, and please have somebody drive me. Right? Because I'm joking about that. And they have reasons for that, blah blah blah. But my point is that we have to be very careful that we don't always buy that label that goes with that image, right? Because with that image, there's a history, there's a person, there's a culture, there's an understanding that goes beyond that usually is way beyond our depth of understanding, right? And so, and let me say, the depth of understanding from where we are, right? Now, once I come to you and I get to know you and we have conversations, and wow, I find out, multiple things about you that I didn't know before. And so, I think in any case, in America, there's a statistic that was recently done in American public schools, and I was at an education conference, it was presented, but long story short, they said by the age of 6, majority of girls in American school have decided that they are less intelligent than their male counterparts. By the age of 6. By the age of 12, their posture has literally changed, right? This is in America. But in our minds, we have an image of them playing at the beach, and that is somehow we have told ourselves that they are free and empowered and they don't have these issues. You see that? So we need to got to shift our perspective a little bit.
In every age and every time, you can see just walking around here, women have to buy whatever stereotypes are prevailing, right? Every age, every time. Whether history records them for us to learn about later is another point, and that comes from narrative building again. But there are ways, even recently, the Art of the Quran exhibit that was at the Sackler, right? There was a whole section on how women preserved Qurans. So how did they do that? They were wealthy women, and what did they do? They used their funding to commission the creation of Qurans. And these aren't cute little, pocket size, these are ornate table-sized things, because that was also a way to honor their faith, but also sometimes have family lineage in the front, very similar to how people do with Bibles as well, right? So that is funding arts, right? That is funding employment opportunities for people, right? That is a lot of stuff happening, but I could easily, if I wanted to create another narrative, say, look at those poor women locked away, had nothing better to do than to just squander money on these cute little books, right? There's always multiple ways of telling the same story, but I found a lot of power in that. That is women moving arts funding along in a very major way.
And preservation of faith and
Art,
and
faith,
art and
history.
huge. And a lot of people don't think, well, how did they get wealthy? We're almost assuming some man gave them some money, right?
Yeah.
Many of these women are very powerful businesswomen.
Oh, I mean, the
Right?
first university in the world was created by a Muslim woman. I mean, I was really happy to see her here. But again, I've been in this situation. I've been in Yemen, I've been in Saudi, I've been in all these countries, and there have been moments where I've had to negotiate something like an honor killing and the release of the daughter and stuff. So there are horrible things that are done. But I think it's when we're afraid to look at the solution in faith, right? Like we're very comfortable in classifying the problem in a religious lens, but then we're so shy and afraid of trying to find a solution in a religious lens. And I think oftentimes that's really part of it. I mean, when I come and I negotiate with a father, I negotiate with a brother, I don't use UN Resolution 1325 on women, peace, and security, right? Like, I love that resolution, it's got great recommendations, but it's not, doesn't have what we call moral authority, right? And moral authority is actually a security term, it's not a religious term. When people go into countries, they say, who holds moral authority? Is it the police? Is it militia? Is it military? And so when we look at social problems, and I really truly believe Islam was a social justice movement, and among of it was a women's revolution. It revolutionized that part of the world, and until this day, the globe. And so when you come from the social justice lens, you're not afraid to name the problem. But what I worry about is when we only think that there's a secular or some, liberal postmodern form of the only way to solve it, when in fact we have the solutions, we just don't want to see it and we don't want to embrace it. And I tend to think it is because of consumerism, and it is because we're just trapped in this cycle of, you just described it perfectly. If they create the problem so that they can sell the solution. I don't know who they are, but there are powers that be that
These are all products of the Muslim community. It's not like we are all standing here as exceptions.
Right.
We are,
Absolutely.
I am rooted
Absolutely.
in my community, and that's very important to me.
That's a great
Some of my, in terms
Right.
of religious history, my teachers, majority of them were women.
Yeah.
I want to say one last point, is she said, you're talking about that we think sometimes people's understanding, we can't necessarily, just like the KKK or ISIS, people adopt religion and you can't always, you don't have a domination on their understanding and their interpretation of it or what they do. But the same exists in secularism. And what I mean by that is when every 13 minutes a woman is raped in America, and that's not under a religious institution, or 1 in 3 women before the age of 10, and 1 in 7 boys before the age of 12 are molested or raped in this country, and those are just the ones that are reported. When we're talking about this issue of they're not empowered, or we have, I'm just saying that it's important that we don't say, the Muslims have this problem they need to address.
Yeah.
We have this problem.
And
We collectively have this problem.
the type of abuse that we have in the West is where women get hospitalized. If you look at the other forms of abuse across the globe, it doesn't reach the point where you're hospitalized, and usually by a loved one, usually by a spouse or a boyfriend, that it's to the point where you're hospitalized. So, absolutely.
So I just want us to be careful that
Absolutely.
Muslims have this problem with their girls being oppressed.
It's a global.
It's a global problem that we,
And,
Steve, I'm obligated.
Yes,
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 I
you
The
appreciate
are.
sisters,
that.
I told them 4 o'clock. I love it like y'all love it.
Just like
You know,
Pickle buttercup.
I mean, I think you should continue. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's very inspiring. And I really cut it off for you, Sister Ieasha,
Yeah, 'cause
because
my
you
husband
said
is
you
here.
have to go, and then I saw your husband rolling around and you know time is up.
Yeah.
But this ends the part of the program. They want to continue from the No, I'm not putting nobody out.
I actually have another event I do.
I know that I was just letting it over, but they can continue. I have nothing. It's up to y'all. But if y'all want to answer any more questions.
I thank you guys all so much for coming and for listening and just being a part of it and sharing in this moment with us. And I really, really appreciate it.
I didn't have a question, I just wanted to say that I grew up Catholic, but this is like the most church I have felt in so long, like I cannot even explain it to you all, and I just love that I came here and listened to this panel and that happened, so.
Awesome.
I'm actually going to the
all-
National Cathedral on Tuesday
Oh,
for a
perfect.
tour. I love it. You can find faith everywhere.